Imagine a small island nation once cut off from the entire world, a place where foreign ships were banned, people lived in isolation, and centuries-old traditions ruled every aspect of life. Yet within just a few decades, that same nation rose to challenge the mightiest empires of the West: Britain, the United States, Russia, even China. That nation was Japan, and this is the incredible story of how Japan transformed itself from a closed feudal society into one of the most advanced, powerful, and prosperous countries in the world. The story of the Meiji Restoration, a revolution that didn't just change Japan's fate, but reshaped global history forever. Long before modern Tokyo, bullet trains, and neon skylines, Japan was ruled under a feudal system for over 2 centuries by the Tokugawa shogunate. The emperor existed, but only as a divine symbol. The real power was in the hands of the shoguns and the samurai class who served them. Society was deeply divided. At the top stood the samurai warriors, then came peasants, artisans, and merchants at the bottom. Common people had no rights to speak of. The samurai controlled everything, even the weapons, while ordinary citizens were bound by strict codes. Japan became a rigid, static society, cut off from innovation and progress. During this time, Japan's rulers believed in total isolation, a policy called sakoku, meaning locked country. Foreigners were forbidden to enter, and any Japanese who left the country could never return. Violators faced the death penalty. For more than 200 years, Japan remained sealed from the rest of the world. Inside, its unique culture evolved and touched, but outside, the world was changing fast. The Industrial Revolution was transforming Western nations. Steam engines roared, factories multiplied, and European empires spread their influence across Asia. The winds of change were about to reach Japan's shores. In 1853, an event shattered Japan's isolation forever. For massive black warships led by American Commodore Matthew Perry arrived at Edo Bay, demanding that Japan open its ports to trade. The sight of these powerful, steam-driven ships, unlike anything the Japanese had ever seen, shocked the nation. The Tokugawa shogunate, weakened and unprepared, had no choice but to sign unequal treaties with the United States, Britain, and other powers. Japan's sovereignty was compromised, its economy shaken, and its people humiliated. This humiliation ignited a fire within, a realization that unless Japan changed, it would be conquered just like China had been. Out of this crisis emerged a new vision: to strengthen the nation by learning from the very powers that had forced it open. A powerful movement grew with a simple slogan: Fukoku Kyohei, enrich the country, strengthen the military. Intellectuals, young samurai, and reformers rallied under a single goal: to restore power to the emperor and modernize Japan from within. In 1868, after years of civil struggle, the Tokugawa shogunate was overthrown. A young emperor named Mutsuhito ascended the throne, taking the name Meiji, meaning enlightened rule. The Meiji Restoration had begun. What followed was nothing short of miraculous. In just one generation, Japan transformed from a feudal state into a modern industrial power. The new leaders, known as the Meiji oligarchs, realized that survival meant change: rapid, radical, and relentless change. They sent students and officials abroad to study Western science, politics, and technology. They invited foreign experts to teach everything from shipbuilding to medicine. The government itself was restructured, feudal domains were abolished, and all power was centralized under the emperor. A new constitution, inspired by Germany's model, was introduced in 1889, granting limited civil rights and establishing a parliamentary system known as the Diet. But the transformation wasn't just political, it was deeply personal for millions of Japanese citizens. The samurai class, once the mighty warriors of Japan, was disbanded. They were forbidden to carry swords, their stipends cut, and their privileges stripped away. This was painful for many, but it was necessary to build a modern nation. Merit replaced birth as the measure of success. Education became compulsory, and for the first time, children from all backgrounds could dream of a different future. The literacy rate soared from about 50% at the start of the Meiji era to nearly 80% by its end. Around this time, if you are feeling inspired by Japan's incredible transformation, hit that subscribe button right now. Because stories like these remind us how knowledge, courage, and determination can change the destiny of entire nations. Stay with us, the best part of Japan's story is yet to come. As education spread, Japan's economy began to roar. The Meiji leaders knew that military power required industrial strength. Railways were built at lightning speed. The first line opened in 1872, connecting Tokyo and Yokohama. Within just a few decades, thousands of miles of track crisscrossed the nation. Telegraph lines linked cities, and modern ports, lighthouses, and shipyards emerged along the coasts. Western technology poured in. Textile factories, steelworks, and shipbuilding yards transformed Japan into an industrial powerhouse. One of the most remarkable features of this growth was the rise of the Zaibatsu, giant family-owned business conglomerates such as Mitsui, Mitsubishi, and Sumitomo. These groups began when the government sold its industrial enterprises to private investors to encourage capitalism. The Zaibatsu became the backbone of Japan's modern economy, driving innovation and global trade. Even without rich natural resources, Japan used its greatest resource, its people, to build a strong, self-sustaining economy. Silk production became Japan's golden industry. By the late 19th century, Japan had become the world's largest producer and exporter of raw silk, surpassing China, France, and Italy. The profits fueled further industrialization, diversification, and modernization. Socially, Japan underwent a complete transformation. The rigid hierarchy of feudal times dissolved into a merit-based society. The emperor became a unifying symbol, and the concept of national pride, kakutai, bound the people together. Western clothing, architecture, and customs began to mix with traditional Japanese culture. Streets filled with gas lamps, schools with modern textbooks, and cities with new industries. The Japanese spirit of discipline and collective effort turned modernization into a national mission. But modernization also meant militarization. The Meiji government understood that to be respected by Western powers, Japan needed a strong army and navy. Borrowing ideas from Prussia and Britain, Japan established a modern conscript army and a powerful navy. Military academies trained officers in Western tactics and strategy. Within a few decades, Japan's forces were no longer the underdogs, they were among the best in Asia, and then came the moment that stunned the world. In 1894, Japan went to war with China over control of Korea. The world expected China, the great empire of the East, to crush the upstart Japanese. Instead, Japan's modernized forces delivered a swift and decisive victory. The Treaty of Shimonoseki in 1895 gave Japan control of Taiwan, the Liaodong Peninsula, and recognition as a major regional power. Just 10 years later, Japan faced an even greater challenge: war with Russia. Once again, the world doubted Japan. But in 1905, the impossible happened. Japan defeated the Russian Empire, becoming the first Asian nation in modern history to defeat a European power. This victory sent shockwaves across the globe. Colonized nations in Asia and Africa looked to Japan as proof that modernization and self-belief could overcome centuries of Western dominance. The West, once dismissive, now regarded Japan with respect and fear. The Meiji era ended in 1912 with the death of Emperor Meiji, but by then, Japan had already secured its place among the great powers of the world. In just 44 years, it had built railways, factories, schools, and warships. It had restructured its government, re-educated its population, and redefined what it meant to be a modern nation. From a feudal backwater, Japan had become a symbol of progress, discipline, and determination. The secret of Japan's success lay not just in adopting Western ideas, but in adapting them, blending them with its own culture of unity, respect, and resilience. Japan didn't just imitate the West, it outperformed it in its own unique way. This remarkable journey shows how even a nation humbled and isolated for centuries can rise to global prominence through vision, education, and relentless reform. So next time you look at Japan, its skyscrapers, its high-speed trains, its global influence, remember this: it all began with a moment of humiliation and a decision to never let history repeat itself. The Meiji Restoration wasn't just a political revolution. It was a spiritual awakening, a national rebirth. If you felt inspired by Japan's incredible rise from isolation to innovation, tell me in the comments, what do you think was the most important factor behind Japan's transformation? Its leadership, its education system, or its people's discipline? Your thoughts might just spark our next great discussion.